Okay, so we left before the break the situation where we have ready UVs on image. So next thing what I'm doing is I'm opening the Photoshop and then I'm just opening the file. So it was UV map, small mark, PNG, and I'm creating now a new layer for background like this. So I can see my UVs, there should be a solid color. Uh, you can use your own artistic vision while texturing this mug, but I'm going to find some moving image to attach into my mug. So maybe I just type here in the image search Muumipeikko and then the image search, and here I can find actually quite nice Muumipeikko already. I'm just watching the pixel sizes here, and maybe this Muumipeikko will be my choice. And it's rather small actually. And in a second I will do the recap of saving UVs. I will just save this image. So when we are exporting these UVs from Maya, I'm on the UV selection mode. I will select all the UVs and then I come top here into the image. I press image section open and then UV snapshot. We get the options where from we can save our UV map. So first browse, and then you of course select where to save this UV map. So for example UV Teema Mark can be name of this UV map. Then the file format PNG is preferable. Of course you can do whatever you like or save as file form or in the file format what you prefer, and then just apply and close, and now it's image what you can open in Photoshop. But yeah, back into the Photoshop, and then I'm going to open the Moomin Troll picture what I just brought here, and I'm going to duplicate this layer to my small mug, and it seems to be huge. So with Command T I'm scaling it down. And actually in this point I could change the background color be something more light. So something like that. I'm selecting the marquee tool because I want to fill only the outer side of the mark with this light blue background like this. Maybe too bright. Still adjusting a bit like that. Okay, now it looks good. And the thing what I'm going to do, I'm going to disable the marquee tool. And with this moving character, I'm going to scale it down. Here you don't have to follow, you can just put here what pleases you. So at least I'm duplicating this with Command G or Command J. To make a pattern or something like that. So just placing these characters here with the basic Photoshop operations. So Command G duplicating the layer, and then with the Command T, so free transform tool, I'm just adjusting the rotation and the size of this character. And few more. And after that, I think my texture is quite finished. Although I need to adjust the colors still. Okay, now there is bunch of movements there. Maybe one more. Okay, two more. Okay. And after this, I will fill the other or the rest of the background with white, because I want that my mark is white. And also I want to fill bit of the edge of the mark here to be white, because that is how it is in real life. Then of course, if you want to add some images here in the bottom of the mark, or inner mark, then you have to put these uh, textures on top of these areas of map. For example, I can type here with Arial, so the texture tool, and then I can type here, but not with white, of course. So now there will be Mediastadi inside of the mark, maybe with 30. And then to the bottom of the mark I will write Maya basics like this. And now I can see that these edges here are not quite straight, so that's why I need to also rotate my text like this. And actually I will also move this media studies text to the bottom of my mark. Okay, then the next step here is to turn off the layer 0, which is our UVs, and now we are going to save this image. So file, save as, and I'm going to use the PNG again, and this is going to be thema mark base color .png. Then I will save it on the desktop, and even if your texture is not ready at this point, please save it, and then we are going to import it into Maya, and you can continue with your texture later if you want. Okay, we are now at Maya, so please save at this point. Command S. And after that, we are changing the workspace back to the Maya Classic, because we don't need that anymore, the UV editing. And if we open the channel box here, and we have our mark active, we can see that under this inputs list there is lots of stuff. There is polytweak, polycut, polybridge, etc. This is all history here, and it's making our scene heavier and our object heavier. At this point it doesn't matter because we have only one object, but if you have 10,000 objects on your scene, then it's starting to show. So it could matters to clean this history. And for the recap, it happened like this. So you go to the edit, and then delete by type, and then history. So now we don't have history anymore. Only thing what we have is our shape. Next thing what we are doing is that we are adding the color to our ready material. So let's go back to the channel box, attribute editor. So here on the attribute editor, we will open this, and in the attribute editor, you can see 3 tabs. So we have mug base 1, which is basically the transform node of our mug base. Then we have mug base shape, which is the shape node of our mug. And then the last we have here is the I standard surface, which means Arnold standard surface. And actually we can rename this to be Teema Mug SHD, which is shortened for shader, and then press enter. So now you know what is what shader. You might have even 20 to 50 shaders on your scene, so that's why it's very necessary to name everything. And here on the attribute editor, you will press this small checkerboard on the end of the color, and that will give you a create a render node option, and from here you will select a file, and that will create a file node for us. And here in the attribute editor you can now see that we can open image by pressing this folder icon here, and it opens the Finder window for us, wherefrom we have to navigate to the desktop or wherever you saved your texture. I have it here, Thema Mug Base Color. I press open and nothing happens. That's because we haven't applied any preview textures here on our viewport. So if we come up here, next to the panels there is these cubes, and then there is this ball with checkerboard, and if you press it, we can preview our texture without rendering. And now we can see that, okay, it aligns there nicely. Hopefully it aligns for you as well nicely. If you want to turn off the textures, you just click here. Sometimes it's nice to see the textures, but not always. And now if we are pressing number 3, our mug will be smooth as well. At this point, I recommend that you press Command S for saving, and then we can actually do the test rendering. So here on the outliner, we have to turn on area light. So I select the area light and press H. So it becomes visible again, then area light 2, H again, and then the plane, and it will be visible. And now if we press render button, the mock will be rendered for us. It takes a bit time because it's a bit more complicated material. So 15 seconds, and now if we are zooming, we can see that there's lots of grain, but we can fix in a second with render settings, but otherwise this is fairly good result. So the next thing what we are modifying here is that we are actually scaling up our light sources a lot. So I just turn off the rendering window and then I'm scaling this up like this to be huge. And actually I think by pressing W I'm moving those out of the scene area or out of the plane area. And the thing what I want to do with the plane, I want it to be reflective. So I need to give our plane reflective material. And as I did earlier, by pressing mouse's right on top of my mesh, I'm able to get options window opened where there is assign new material here in the bottom, which pops up a new options window for me. And from this option window or assign new material window, I select Arnold and the shader underneath it, and then I standard surface. And now if I render, the surface is already a bit more shinier. But here in the attribute editor, I'm going to change still some settings. So for example, this roughness value, we have now modified the color only from this shader, but here on the under the specular tab, roughness, if I drop it down to the 0, it will reflect more. And then if I'm turning this metalness value as well up here to the 1, it will be fully reflective like this. And I can actually add bit roughness there when I have applied the metallic. So then you can see difference between the reflection and the mug. And then I bring my camera closer to the mug because I don't want to see reflection of those lights on my plane. And my scene is currently rather dark. So the thing what I should do here is add a bit more value to the lights. So here on the left, I can click my light one on the outliner to get it opened. here in the attribute editor, and I can type 2500 for example here, and let's see, yeah, it gives me more light, and maybe same for the light too, maybe even 3500 for this side. Let's see if it does any good. And then the rendering is going on. And this is basically how you set up your mark for the rendering. I'm just let this to render to the end, because I'm soon going to change the render settings, and I want to show the difference between those two. So there is quite a lot of sparks around here, and it's not a clean render. But the downside is, if we want less sparks, we have to consume more time to the rendering. So more time you use for rendering, more time or more power and more like time it needs for more clear renders. So where we can change these rendering values is if you come top here near the clef port and you select the clef port with the gear which says display render settings. And we are getting this kind of window opened, where from we can change the settings. First of all, we have to change this render using Arnold renderer if it's not there. Then the thing what we can change here is renderable cameras. If we have, for example, a bar camera, what we used earlier today, we can change it, the render camera to be here. Then the image size. Currently HD 540 is good for us, uh, because we don't have so much rendering power that we can consume more time for this. But for example here you can select the most common used aspect ratios, or the most commonly used formats. And then of course, if you want, you can type your own values here. Resolution is not usually necessary to change because we don't very often print our 3D renders. But then, how to improve the quality? We come here to the Arnold Renderer tab, and then we just add numbers to the sampling section. And I warn you, if you go more than 5, it will take many hours, up to 4 hours, or it depends of course about the materials. But I would say that we put here 4, and then the diffuse tree, specular tree, and transmission tree, and then we can actually close this rendering window, and then I'm pressing the Arnold icon again, rendering icon, and let's see if it does any better quality for us. It seems to be quite fast, but quality is not much better. Let's see in a second. And it's finished. I take a snapshot. Okay, this is the first one. There is a lot of grain, bit better with the second. And now if I go and top up this, okay, because it was so fast, maybe I try 6, 4, 4, 4, and close this. And let's see if the quality will end up be even more better. But for the starts, usually it's enough if you change those sampling settings to be higher. You will get better results with it. And now we can see that more time is consumed for each area of the render to be calculated. And let's just wait that it does the render. And I think soon it will be ready and we can compare it to the earlier shots. Yeah, I'm taking a snapshot. And this was the first. At least I can see the quality difference for the last. Yeah, the grain is definitely decreasing while we added more time. And as I showed you earlier, you can just come here, File, Save Image, and then you can save to desktop. I will save this as Moomi Mug and save it to desktop. And on desktop, I will now have Moomi Mug